So let's dig into CPAC, as CPAC dismisses claims that its stage resembled a Nazi insignia. Hyatt calls hate symbols abhorrent. This is an interesting article because wow, but let's get into it. For 4 days at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Orlando, speakers at the Conservative Political Action Conference shared a number of contentious views. I better not read too far ahead of me. From echoing false claims about election fraud to undermining the seriousness of a pandemic that has killed more than 512,000 Americans. But some critics also aim at seemingly more mundane detail, the shape of the conference stage. I want to talk about you guys quick first before I move on with this. Echoing false claims about election fraud. Now, I want to be careful here. That is from this article, and this is from the Washington Post. False claims about election fraud, you guys. Let's talk about that a second first. That's actually not accurate.
That's inaccurate. Yeah.
It's an opinion.
It is an opinion. And here's the thing that I want to say about that before moving on with more of this story and getting into the Nazi symbology here. But there has been now independent people who have gone to addresses that don't exist. They're in the middle of parking lots. There's an address. I saw it, literally video of it. An address, in fact, in Las Vegas that was in between houses. There was no house actually there. There was just a little bit of probably 10 or 20 feet in between these two houses where the address would have been. And a lot of these different things. Now, I'm going to let you guys weigh in 1 second, but let me say this. There has been election fraud. Well, we might get this literally might get canceled, get us pulled off the air for talking about this. I'm not kidding. It's been going on since the beginning. And it goes on both sides. Irregularities. Sorry, it's true.
Yep.
What do we do? How do they come out and scream on one side of things that they didn't? That Trump had election fraud from Russia for 3.5 years, and now there's no election. All of a sudden, the only year that there's no election fraud. I'm sorry, but where are we at?
So I want to say the heroes. I'm fighting at your job. So I want to say the heroes of CPAC. Obviously President Trump was there, but the heroes of CPAC, I was there. The heroes were the whistleblowers from Project Veritas. They came on stage, they gave a little video clip and documented how they documented voter fraud. It happened to be all men. They stood up and gave their story. The UPS man, I think you guys all know it. He documented when this whole big pallet of votes and ballots and everything came through. Later, UPS made him recant it. He recorded the interview, and UPS said to him, "We're not forcing you to do this." "Well, yes, we are forcing you to do this." That man, you know what he said at the end of his speech? He said, "I served in Afghanistan, and right now I'd rather be over there than being scrutinized and chastised and treated the way I am right now here in the United States." He lost his job. Friends, everything like that are treating him terrible for coming and being honest and open and announcing and proving this voter fraud. Those were the heroes of CPAC and proving the voter fraud.
Interesting.
There has been, it's on both sides. I hate to say that to you, Martha May, but it's on both sides. Now, the whole question is it enough to change the election? That's what's to be proven. But for me is when they're screaming about this, saying that there was no, there's no irregularities, there's no fraud, there's no none of this. It's like, that's just not true. There might not be enough to overturn the election, though. Right. But to say there's zero that's not accurate. That's where I get really confused.
There needs to be an overhaul in the system, and people argue that you can't have voter ID because it disenfranchises certain races or neighborhoods or whatever. And I've seen videos where they've gone to predominantly minority neighborhoods, and they've asked the people, "Do you have an issue getting a state-issued ID?" And they're like, No, we walk around the corner, we go pick it up. Like, don't make me look like a fool and think that I can't get a state-issued ID so that I can have, proper ID for voting.
Yeah.
I think that would be step number one, and it would go a long way for evening out the playing field and everybody gets their voice heard.
We have to have an ID for every single thing that we ever do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Why not have an ID for the most important thing that needs to be done, is what I ask. And don't federalize it either. we want the states to handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. What anyone else on that piece of it?
All I got to say is that I feel like we hear about this yearly, if not every 4 years, about election fraud. And just, I guess my 2 cents is I'm glad that we have podcasts like this where we can speak the truth, where we can speak our opinion and our perspective. And it's like, I'm just getting kind of tired of hearing about it and tired of hearing the blame game. And I think we all can admit that both sides are guilty. And so let's start cleaning it up.
I would agree with that
Yeah.
wholeheartedly.
Going forward, people want to know their vote counts. They really do. Otherwise we may not have an election.
Right. I mean, do we have to go old school like they did in Iraq and everybody gets to dip their finger in purple dye? I mean, is that what we have to do? Because obviously the electronic systems are tamperable.
Right.
Well, it makes you question other things too. I mean, the voting is just the tip of the iceberg. But like you said, it's on both sides. But that's our, where does it stop? Where does it begin? Type of thing. That's how I'm feeling about it.
I think that, literally for me is to say that when there's no voter fraud, I'm concerned with that, right? Because there always is, there always has been. And for all of a sudden in 1 year that it's just gone now, how in the world is that even possible? Right. And it's on both sides. I'm not saying that the Democrats did it or the Republicans did it, the Libertarians did it or the Independents did it or anything like that. People are people, and we do things that we shouldn't do. And to go from one election to another election and say that it doesn't exist is just, I'm sorry, but I have a real hard time with that.
Maybe it went away with the flu.
Like I said, it might have went away with the flu.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
like
it
I
comes
said,
back
I'm going to
again next
offend some
year,
people.
Yeah, better than before, yeah.
Yeah.
So they shot over the bow.
As we all take a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people look, I have a teeny tiny platform here. It's not anything exciting and big and whatever, and sure I want it to grow, but the one thing that I want to grow the most is that it is something that we build that loyalty with the people that want to hear legitimately important things. And that's why that's why Escape the Echo Chamber. We want to try to understand different sides of it. That's why it's called Shh. It matters, right? Because it does. What people have to say matters, and I think that's why it's so crucial and important that we don't just say, oh, all of a sudden, no more voter fraud. It's all gone, and yeah.
We're okay with making things uncomfortable.
We're gonna have to.
Makes it interesting.
It makes it interesting.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have to because, I guess we're in cancel culture, right? And in cancel culture, I don't know, man. It's this past couple of weeks, especially, have frankly kind of scared me a little bit, and how deep it really is, and how a lot of people don't really want to hear both sides or all sides, and I also want to.
They can't hear it. They're not allowed to hear it. Also, they're not allowed to hear it.
Yeah, and you can't actually do things like that because how do you combat bad speech, right? You combat bad speech by better speech, and that's really kind of the point. I thought about this article, and that's what I've been goofing around here on my phone, you guys, while I'm trying to talk too. But is this article, The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election? Now, this is an interesting article, and this isn't what we're talking about, but I read this a couple of weeks ago. And this, let's not put this up, though. Let's pull this back off. but we're gonna just look at it here quick. And it talks about, and if you scroll through this, and we'll include this link in the description of the podcast in all social media places. This is an interesting article because you go through here and it literally starts talking about how they started this campaign to fortify the election back in 2019. Pre-pandemic, all these things, they started to change some of the laws on to protect democracy and all these other things. It's a very interesting article, and when I read this and then I saw this in the CPAC article today, it just made me think of it, and how they literally came out. This Time magazine article literally came out and said, "Well, we know it happened. We know we did things to change the constitution of the states and stuff, and how voting was done pre-pandemic." Literally says it in the article. It's almost like they're proud of it.
That's disgraceful for our media. They shouldn't be able to influence the general public to vote for somebody that they feel is the better fit. Shouldn't people do their own research and find out who is the best representative for them? I struggle with our media having that much of an influence on people.
Completely.
So, yeah.
What happens when there's bad speech and you try to silence the bad speech? One is bad speech is a little bit subjective. We have perspectives and opinions and things like that, so it's very subjective. Well, you're going to go underground then, right?
Absolutely.
So
they're forcing people to go underground.
And then does that fester positively, or does that fester in a negative way?
Right. Absolutely.
I want to be able to make my decision.
I want to be heard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Has anybody ever told you that, Harmony, that doesn't make any sense? What are you thinking?
Tell
me
all
my
the
life.
time. All the time.
Does that make you grow, or does that make you shrink?
It makes me think. It makes me think. I don't, the older I get, the more I try to understand others' perspective as well. So if somebody were to say that, it makes me think, why do you feel that way? What can I do, differently perhaps? So that's probably the best answer, I would say.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I think we get very defensive or we deflect. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's really just, we're kind of mirrors, aren't we? We kind of just, maybe it says a lot more about ourselves than them. Sometimes we just need to think a little deeper.
Yeah.
It does seem like it's getting more and more worse with every generation, so to speak, I feel like.
Every day. I mean, look at how much every day has changed. Every day. Look at the things that we can't have anymore.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss. I mean, Mr. Potato Head. I mean, a CPAC
Potato
convention.
Wow.
They tried to cancel America uncanceled event. I mean, they literally tried to cancel it. They did not want President Trump in town. And I'm just saying that, meaning the left, they did not. That's an opportunity. It's a convention. Even go back to President Biden. He was trying to cancel and shut down the state of Florida here a couple weeks ago. Why? Because it was going to be a big conservative convention. Mm-hmm. Do we do that to the left? Do we do that to the middle? No. So they were trying to cancel that. If you look at the article, now coming up with this whole slander thing of this whole
let me
Nazi.
continue. So images of the CPAC stage went viral this weekend as many noted resemblance of the Othala ruin, a symbol emblazoned on some Nazi uniforms. The Anti-Defamation League has classified the insignia as a hate symbol that has been adopted by modern-day white supremacists. CPAC's organizers vehemently denied any link between the stage design and the Nazi symbology, calling the criticism outrageous and slanderous. We have a long-standing commitment to the Jewish community, said the chair of the American Conservative Union on Saturday in a tweet. Cancel culture extremists must address anti-Semitism within their own ranks. CPAC proudly stands with our Jewish allies, including those speaking from this stage. As the controversy continued on Sunday, Hyatt Hotels said in a statement that it had addressed the concerns with the conference and denounced any use of hate symbols. We take the concern raised about the prospect of symbols of hate being included in the stage design at CPAC 2021 very seriously, as all such symbols are abhorrent and unequivocally counter to our values as a company, said Hyatt, which had faced pointed criticism for hosting the event. The hotel noted it allowed the event to continue after organizers told us that any resemblance of a symbol of hate is unintentional. The blowback comes after CPAC organizers, there's too much here. But what do you think? What do you think here of this article, guys?
You know, knowing firsthand, they were trying to shut it down. I mean, it goes back to even on Friday, there was tables set up with water for the guests to have water every so often, and those were all pulled because the mayor of the town did not want President Trump there. You know, there was law enforcement
Did he say that he
officers.
didn't want President Trump there?
They were trying to do everything they could to keep him from there. So even having law enforcement officers, I think that's part of the article or another article, they were making sure the county had law enforcement officers. You got one warning if you didn't have a mask on. You got a warning. A second one, you got a ticket. And third one, you got charged with trespassing if you didn't have your mask on. And because that's
Was that from the hotel, from Hyatt?
no,
or
that's
from
a
the
blue
sheriff?
ran county. That's why. And that was forced onto the hotel. That was not anything that was disclosed like the week before. But all of a sudden, push comes to shove. That was all the orders that came down.
What's wrong with following the rules?
Well, those were rules that were made separate. Like, that wasn't part of the rules the week before. But now, knowing that President Trump was going to come to town, for sure, those were all enforced. Made like that. And threatened. Could you go anywhere else in Orlando and not be treated that same way? Yes.
Hopefully CPAC or any other group learns their lesson and
You know,
doesn't have it in a
and
a
part
town
of
that's
it
not
is
gonna be
the
courteous
Hyatt
to.
had CPAC's back up until like Thursday when push came to shove and this whole big negative push with the left and everything and all this retaliation. And that's what I'm trying to say. They were trying to cancel the America Uncanceled event. I mean, they were trying to get it canceled. You know, the whole big push you can see on Twitter and different things like that and other social media where everybody's like, we're going to quit, staying at Hyatt, Hyatt's, not going to have our business anymore. So then Hyatt started to feel threatened instead of standing by. They came out with a really nice press release, Hyatt did, backing CPAC, saying, you know what, we support any business that we've worked with in the past and the future, different things like that. And then they kind of took a second step with the whole image kind of thing. Then they kind of threw CPAC under the bus with that.
I thought it was very interesting. I want to put this in here as I investigated this story. The Washington Post. Do you know who owns the Washington Post? Anybody?
No.
Jeff Bezos.
Oh.
A little company called Amazon is what he also
Yeah.
owns.
That's right.
Which is, he's very well known that he is very blue, liberal, Democrat. Also, the stage. Did anybody look at who built the stage?
A private company.
I was going to ask who came up with the design, whether it was intentional
I'll
or
tell
not.
ya.
It wasn't really thought
I'll
through
tell
very
you
well.
who did. A Maryland company, and I just forgot the name of it. Design Foundry
Yeah.
is who made the stage, and the owner of the company is a well-known liberal Democrat. And they, in fact, went so far as to some of the articles that I was able to find. They looked at the donations from people in the company that went to the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. $140 went to the Republican Party in some. It might have been the 2020 campaign. I'm not positive on that. But then $7,000 and some odd dollars went to the Democratic campaign. These are people in the company. So clearly, this is a company that is a liberal-leaning, Democrat-leaning
And I think
owned company,
CPAC said
and
that
that's
also.
okay.
Did they make
And that's
it, or
okay.
did they design it?
They are
Both.
I believe
and
both.
CPAC
They
was not allowed to change it either. That was in the contract. Like, once it was brought to their attention, that was part of the contract. They could not change anything in there. And they had worked with them in the past as well.
Yes,
And CPAC also says, we will consider things in the future now, knowing what's happened with all this. Yeah.
So this cancel
That
culture
sounds like a
mob
setup
comes
for
in
day
there.
one.
Yeah.
Not to go down the conspiracy theory road, but I don't know. That just sounds like a setup
Well, how did
from the
who
get-go.
thought of this. I mean, I was there. Who sees this and thinks of this? Like, how far of a stretch is that? Like, oh wow, look at that. And maybe there was, some intention from this company to sabotage the event and different things like that, kind of like the election. Well, let's see, if an impeachment didn't work, let's try COVID. If COVID didn't work, let's try another impeachment, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe there is some subliminal things going on that this company designed in the set, and if they did it in the past, now let's try it again here. Wow, but to shut us down, our right to assemble, that's our right to assemble, to do that freely, our right to assemble. So that's our constitutional right.
When a company, when the cancel culture tries to cancel this and they don't investigate the company and see that these leftists and these liberals that try to cancel this and call this a Nazi Germany symbol, well, let's do some investigation. Let's look at this. And I mean, come on. Was it intentional? I don't know. Does it matter if it's intentional?
Only for the news, only for the fake news. And I say that, only for a 24-hour kick to sabotage.
I think it matters if it's intentional.
It does, I agree.
Yeah.
It was a question. So then I'll say this. So I was on a stage very similar to that speaking once. It was turned around the other way, how they said this was upside down. So am I a Nazi? No.
I didn't know there were Scottish Nazis.
Exactly. But the point is this, that kind of stuff does happen. You do there's stages all over the country that look weird. There, right. You look at you go into my bathroom and you sit there and you look at the tile floor and you see goofy symbols, right? Have you ever done that?
Anybody that's been to the plumber house notices that there's what we think is a swastika tiles all over the place. But that house was built 30 years before World War I and II.
Yeah.
So it's an old the symbol, the Nazi symbol, goes back thousands of years.
Right.
It's just who has adopted it.
Now, should we willingly throw it out there and get tattoos of it and do all these things and put it on our vehicles? No,
Probably
absolutely not.
No.
But again, you got to circle back to what's the intent, and will we ever find out what the intent of the designers
They showed
are?
other conferences too, where that whole stage design.
It's a very
is
similar,
used.
very similar
and
design.
there's no
all over
problem
the
till
place.
now. There's no problem till now.
Yeah.
As a professional photographer and a graphic artist, I'm looking at it again as a little bit differently because you can design something. I have a background in the studio that has little hidden things that are in it, and to each one of you probably couldn't pick it out, but I know it's there. Did I intentionally? It's nothing wrong. It's cute little smiley faces. I'm just saying when you're, let me make that very clear. They're cute little hidden animals. There's a horse in there, but I'm just saying maybe I want to keep the faith that it was positive that this wasn't intentional, and on the graphic side of it that maybe it truly just
Innocent mistake.
Yeah.
innocently happened.
And what I was saying is, from my perspective looking at it, I really did not notice at first until obviously the article was there and is explaining it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I could see it. And the issue I had with it is when you have celebrities or people of stardom that also make comments on it, and if you happen to be a big fan of that particular celebrity, you're going to sort of, especially if there's respect there. For example, Morgan Freeman commented on it. I'm a huge fan of Morgan Freeman, but I also
not the Morgan Freeman.
Oh, it was a different
It's
Morgan.
a different
Okay, well, I'm glad we say that.
That's a big
But
difference.
here you go.
Morgan Freeman, though, they did the backdrop for that Morgan.
But then
Freeman,
there you
That's
go.
the company.
I was misinformed. Others will be misinformed, and you sort of think, well, he's a top shelf kind of guy. He must be going somewhere with this. So yeah. So if I'm wrong, others can be wrong. And again, going with what you guys are saying, oftentimes we sort of just, our brain wants to make out something more than it really is, and
that is called confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Right. You want to confirm your bias.
Mm-hmm.
You will do everything you can in your power to confirm that your bias is correct.
You'll see what you need
And
to
then
see.
That is exactly
and then
cancel
you get that
culture. You
dopamine
look and you
feel.
look and you look and you look until you see your outcome. And then you scream and you scream and you scream and you scream until you get others to see that.
Apologizing for interrupting. And then I was going to say, and then the beauty of that confirmation to the person whose experiences when you get others who are agreeing with you and adding fuel to the fire, and it's just, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. So to me, sort of stepping outside, I didn't see the significance of it until after I read the article, and others probably, made me look at it in a different way. I still, at the end of the article and thinking about it, was like, I think we put too much thought into that. That was what I came to my conclusion.
And you can only see that, and I still don't really see it because, I still don't really see it.
And I'm like, what would happen if that stage was just turned a little bit? It kind of had like this, different. I'm like, would we still be saying this? It's like, goodness, it's like it's a stage, and we're talking about it. So,
well, and I'll look at it from your standpoint, Lisa. Is look at it logistically. If you're a photographer, you want to get all angles of the speakers. That's how you would do a stage. Because if those back empty spaces were filled with stage, a photographer couldn't get behind the speaker, or a videographer, or they'd have to have a bigger zoom lens. So practicality wise, for function for media, to me it makes sense.
Yeah.
But
And you could turn that, like I was on a stage very similar to that, and you can turn that around the other way, and it functions the same.
Yeah.
It was a little bit different than that, but the wings came out like that, so you could do that, and then that square that's in the back was where the monitors were, right? And so it just makes sense.
Plus, they said they were using the layout that the Hyatt actually gave them, and because of COVID, they're all very conscious. Like, there was 4 chairs, a row, 4 chairs, and everything like that for social distancing. So they had to use the layout. It wasn't even CPAC that designed the stage. And that's kind of what the article doesn't say, and it did say it right away. And then finally, the company that actually designed the stage and has the whole contract for it, 24 hours after this whole slander issue, comes out and says, "Oh well, we're the ones that did it, not CPAC. They didn't have anything to do with it. This was all part of the Hyatt contract and everything." So, again, try to cancel America.
I'm just over here thinking we're talking about stages and the design of them, and we have hungry people in America. But okay,
yeah, yep,
okay, sure.
And we also have kids that need haircuts. So that they can.
Yeah.
That's a good segue, right?
Hey, a lot of people have asked how they can support the work we're doing here at Matt Logan Speaks. Well, you see this hammer that I got in my hand? It's pretty big. All you have to do is hammer the share button. Go ahead and hammer out a comment to us. Go ahead and hammer the like button. Go ahead and hammer the subscription button. Go ahead and hammer the notification bell so that when we have new content up, you're the first to know about it. We really appreciate the comments, shares, likes, because you know what? That's the best way you can support us, because the algorithms on all these fancy computers, that's what they need. We appreciate it.